I'm Jeremy Till, and this is Amplify. Eddy Patterson's joining us today on Amplify Podcast. Eddy is one of the co-owners of Stubbs BBQ here in Austin, Texas, an Austin icon in the live music industry. But Eddy really gets his story going back to when he was in Lubbock, growing the brand Stubbs BBQ, getting it into the store, starting an entrepreneurship business, and spreading Stubbs BBQ sauce across the nation. And, really ties into his story of growing up and the basic tenets of what he does for success in his business, building the family of Stubbs, and really having a world-class environment for his employees to thrive and to go from being busboys to managers, all those cool things of a legend in the sense of creating a business. He's got a new venture here called Eberly's on South Lamar, and some of the challenges he faced in getting that restaurant open, moving a bar from New York City to Austin, and now that place is booked up. All the month of December is totally reserved for tables to eat there. So this guy knows something about success and hard work and focus. So love having Eddy on to share his story about Stubbs and growing a business. I mean, really for me, we're both from Lubbock.
Right.
Now, were you born and raised in Lubbock or were you outside?
Yeah. Born and raised. And in fact, I consider myself a flatlander.
Yeah.
Like you, yeah.
Yep.
So jumping over tumbleweeds when I was a kid and all that kind of stuff.
What part of Lubbock did you grow up in?
So 59th, right around, pretty close to Monterey.
Okay.
And so, in fact, I went to Monterey for a semester and played football, and then switched over to Lubbock High, graduated Lubbock High, and played football over there, and we won the Spurs.
Oh.
We actually beat Monterey.
What year?
Oh, man. See, I graduated 85. So,
okay.
And sadly, that was the first game we won in over, 5 years. In fact, they were going to dismiss that Spurs trophy because Lubbock High just wasn't competitive. So it was for some reason, we had a good team, and because Lubbock High had allowed people to I don't know about transfer, but they allowed people to come to Lubbock High,
right?
Because they did a LEAP program 4 days a week for school, and then on Friday you could do electives like play guitar or play ping pong. I mean, just some weird kind of activity-based curriculum. And I thought, man, this is great. So went over there, and I look back, and that was to leave the popular high school and go to a kind of a less than school. Was, I don't know, it was just something I wanted to do. I felt compelled to do that, and I look back, and it was obviously a good thing to do, and good memories, and plus it made me kind of high school can be, you looking back, can be kind of a tough time in a young man or any person's life, because you're still defining who you are, and Lubbock High allowed me to be friends with people at Monterey and people at Coronado and people at Dunbar, because it just didn't have all those social stigmas, I guess. Looking back, but I was ready to kind of get out of Lubbock, I think, but I have great memories there, and home is wherever you are, it's always home, and just went back for Thanksgiving, and my parents are still there, and my dad was interestingly, he played football in college, and he ran track at Tech. That's how he got to Lubbock, and still has a record in the 110 hurdles, and has a Texas relay record still. Only because of the technicality of it, because they went from 110 to 220s to 440s to, and now it's just 102. So it's more of a technical time record. But he was a very competitive guy, and still lives in Lubbock. So he still pulls for the Red Raiders. I don't know if you do, but I mean, I guess I do a little bit too, right?
It's interesting. We're family. Like my father went to Tech, and my brother went to Tech. My sister Amy went to Lubbock High, and she went to Texas Tech. And cool. So, and we grew up watching Texas Tech football. Spike Stike, he was the man, and it was good old boys back then. My dad used to get sideline tickets when they would travel. Yeah. So we'd get, when I was in high school, we'd go and stand on the sidelines and watch the games. Yeah. So it was just part of growing up.
No, I love to see the Raiders do well, They're fun to watch, and especially when Leach was there.
I love Leach.
He was special, and so I think football. We both grew up with that. That was just it's so important, in Lubbock. I mean, it's important in Texas, but no small towns. I guess it's extra important. I don't know, but
yeah, I think it's a great cultural thing. I think that sometimes we miss it. The boat, when we think about sports and football and just the importance of our last guest that we had on the podcast, Mike Rosenthal, played in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's a high school football coach.
Notre Dame guy? Yeah.
Yep, Notre Dame.
Yep.
And he was talking about, Austin High and what it does for the community and overall. So I think it's just super crucial, giving people a focus, giving people, a purpose, and then the life lessons you get out of it are pretty phenomenal. So you went to, where'd you go to college? Did you go to college afterwards, or?
Yeah, I ended up going to Baylor. Really didn't have a choice. I was the reason I say that is of my family, and extended family, cousins, and what have you. We have I think we're up to 69 members of our family graduate from Baylor. So over aunts, uncles, mom, parents. So there was obviously talking about family. Baylor was in Waco. Was a big part of our legacy, and so didn't really have a choice, I guess. And my parents said, "Well, look, you can go to any college you want to. We'll help you with Baylor financially, but if you want to go somewhere else, it's all on your own." So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to be a Baylor Bear. So
yeah.
But Baylor was and still is a great school. It's the kind of school that I look back and the classes were small. You had 30 people in a class. Professors taught the classes rather than some TA. You had professors would keep hours. They were required to keep hours, which made it nice to, if you had issues after class, you could go see them. So they were very much involved in the whole process. So Baylor was, and still is, very fond memories of Baylor. Obviously, they're having bigger problems in football right now, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. It's a great school, and it to me is like there was lots of choices when you look at colleges, but for at the time it was 13,000 people. That was, it's a big step coming out of Lubbock to anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I love Austin. Austin's been home for 25 years now, but to take a step from Lubbock to Austin, that probably would have been bigger than maybe I could have done at the time. So. Graduated Baylor and a degree in entrepreneurship, which at the time was kind of a weird word, I think. I think people didn't understand what that really meant, to have your own business. But I really was always had wanted to have my own business. That was something it innately was something I've always wanted and had always had, my mom would tell me knocking on neighbors' doors selling rotten tomatoes. I was just, as a kid, I was just that kind of guy. So always pretty ambitious, I guess. So. Baylor helped me with some of those fundamentals in business and great memories.
Yeah. So getting a degree in entrepreneurship and that kind of being your background, were you just did you have a vision for a business or what you wanted to do, or you just knew somewhere in that general area you wanted to get into?
Yeah, I think just the having a business I didn't know at the time. And part of my looking back at Baylor, one of the classes, they said, you have to start a business. And, I didn't know at the time, how do you start a business in, a semester? And we started a check collection agency for bad checks, and that was something a little team and I started, and it did okay. But I think it learned, that wasn't what I was going to do the rest of my life. I knew that. But just being in control of your own P&L and revenue and the expense and the managing and the marketing and all those things, I just liked being that. I like being the boss, not with an ego, but just not being, kind of deciding when I want to work and how often and those things. And honestly, the risk and reward. I mean, we all know that has always been attractive to me as well. So I think those fundamentals were something I aspired to do, and yes, I had other jobs, and I've always have been a hard worker, and was working every chance I could. Even maybe when I couldn't legally, because I'd start working at 13. From Baskin Robbins, scooping ice cream to just hard construction work, and so the ethic of working is always been very important throughout my career, even today. So
did your family? Was that something innate in you, or did your parents encourage you to work, or is it just something that you just felt naturally to do?
A little bit of both. I mean, my parents were always encouraging me. They, My dad was, hardworking guy. My mom worked. So I think just being around that was something you just had to do. I mean, my dad, it wasn't a job, but we were always doing something. I mean, he taught me, so much in life. Like every tool, I know how to use a tool. We would go out and re-roof. We would do a lot of, things together, projects, but, we were always doing something. I look back on my life, I was not the kid, no disrespect, but sitting around and doing a video game on TV. I mean, I was a pretty active guy, and always try to still be. But so, at any rate, yeah, so it was just something. My grandfather did have his own business. He passed away when I was very young, but I think that was appealing to me, and I had the opportunity to take a risk. When I left Baylor, I went to New York City, and I was working for a top 200 company at the time. Had a very good job, salary, insurance, stock, bonuses, all that kind of good stuff. But my heart wasn't into it. It was just something that I was working for somebody else, trying to hit certain quotas in management. I love being in New York, and it was a great opportunity, but I just didn't feel like it was my own destiny, if you will. So, as you know, my partner John and I, who's also from Lubbock, we started helping CB Stubblefield, who was from Lubbock, and my dad would go there, and my mom and all their friends when they were in college, and his little barbecue joint. So it was something that we've always had known, and at that time, there was an opportunity to help him sell his barbecue sauce, and people thought we were crazy, to go, wait a minute, you're gonna consider selling barbecue sauce when you have this, nice job in New York and all this great opportunity, and you want to sell? I mean, those people would laugh, but I think that's what motivated me to make that, And my dad and family were very supportive. Like, you know what? If you want to leave all that, or make a decision to do something else, just make sure you think through it, and be the best at it. If you're going to do this, be the best at it. So I made a promise to my family and to myself to be the best barbecue sauce salesman, if you will. And I can tell you today, 23 years later, we were the #1 specialty barbecue sauce in the category in the country. So I look back and I go, maybe were we the best? I don't know, but I felt like we did a really good job of that task, and my heart was into it. I had that passion, and that's, you hear that a lot, but it's essential, critical. It's the #1 thing. You just have to love what you do, and maybe you'll never work a day if you can find that. And so for us, that's what made the whole Stubbs experience very special.
Right. So let's just really get into that. So if people caught that, Eddy is one of the original guys with Stubbs BBQ, who's famous in the Austin area for live music and their venue here, but their barbecue sauce is probably in a lot of people's refrigerators and used. I know it's in mine. And so it's always neat to see the full spectrum, because Stubbs as a brand is huge. And so coming from, selling barbecue and then the venue, tell us kind of the story of how all that's unfolded.
Yeah, I always kind of kid with people. We'll do the 2-minute story rather than the 2-year or 2-day or 2-week story, because it was obviously a long time to put everything together. But essentially, we left college. We were up in New York City. John Scott and Scott Jensen, some buddies, and Stubb had called us and said he needed some money at the time, and we were like, well, rather than just giving you money, how about if we help you out? And so we helped him, with the barbecue sauce, and we had his recipe, and we would, we didn't know anything about the grocery business, a broker, distribution, retailers. We really just kind of had to burn our own trail. But we were thrilled to be doing something that we understood and we loved and we had a passion for. So we got his barbecue sauce, and we manufactured it. We got the labels, we got the pH right, we got the cost right, the casing right. I mean, all the logistics, we figured that out. Supply chain, all these things you have to do. And we started knocking on doors. We went down and knocked on HEB's door. And, if you ever go to a grocery store and look at a barbecue section, it's crowded and it's competitive. So it's maybe the only thing next to that would be hot sauce. So it's there's a lot of items that are similar to ours, and so we were like, how do we compete? And I think what we just worked really hard, and we believed in our product's a great product, and we knew we had something special, and we were genuine, we were authentic, and it was Stubb, who was alive at the time, and we just knew that we had something that was, going to be something very special, and it was an X factor that we all believed in, and. Yes, we heard no's for 3 years. We heard no's that you can't get on the shelf space, it's too crowded, it's too competitive, but we never gave up, and I think that's, if you are going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to hear a lot of no's. We live in a world of no. You're going to hear it all the time. And so you just have to have tough skin and just, understand that one day you'll get that opportunity. And sure enough, we did, and we worked really hard to, get on the shelves, and we started doing all the things that we needed to do, marketing and all the demos, and I won't bore you with all the details, but people started buying it, and people enjoyed it, and they bought it again, more importantly. And that grew, and then we had our next retailer. So
who was your first retailer?
H-E-B.
H-E-B brought y'all on?
Yes.
Okay. And was that through relationship that they finally said, hey, we'll give you a spot, or how did that open up?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, that was, and it's always, the first store is the hardest, right? It always is in any business. That first opportunity is always sometimes the hardest to get. But our buyers had said no for many years. And then we thought, well, why don't we just throw them a barbecue? So we threw a barbecue, a legitimate, we're going to feed everybody. We really had worked with some of the secretaries and arranged just a barbecue party, and sure enough, they all showed up, and Stubb had smoked some great brisket, and we had it all prepared, and we took it down there, and everyone came down in the lobby, and they were eating this great barbecue, and the buyer came down and goes, man, that's some really good barbecue. What is that? Well, it's Stubb's. I've never heard of Stubb's. And then that opened up the dialogue, and he said, you know what? Do you know what a distributor is? And we were like, no, sir, we have no idea what a distributor is. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we give this a shot and get a few stores. And I got to give credit to David Duran, who was the buyer, a distributed buyer at the time for H-E-B. And now he's, you see him on the H-E-B commercials, buying wine. He's obviously he's been there for many years, and he's a great guy. But yeah, he gave us we call it a hunting license. And so we were able to go to the stores and start selling, and we never looked back. And then we started going to Publix in Florida, and of course Kroger's and Walmart's and Costco's and Albertsons and across the country. So
just sitting there and looking, there's a barbecue joint in Lubbock. Okay, and it's serving up the barbecue, and that's on the ground, the brick and mortar, and then you have this product, which is the sauce, and that's the side of the business that you really took on and started getting distributed. And so it's kind of like, as we see it, when people think about Stubbs, because I'm interested to hear your story about Austin and the venue that y'all have here. Right. And so from a branding standpoint, because it's really a kind of like a cultural lifestyle thing, when you talk about Stubbs, I mean, people are like, oh yeah, that's the spot. If you come to Austin for South by Southwest or any type of music festival, I mean, you're going to go by, Stubbs.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, the authenticity of the brand and Stubb, who was a real person. I mean, there was at a time when people were like, is he a real person? They thought he was like, is this Captain Crunch being made up? But I think that authenticity and to tell his story is really what separated us, because he was a real person. And when you see the pictures of him with John Lee Hooker and Johnny Cash and Muddy Waters and Stevie Ray Vaughan and all these guys played at his little joint in Lubbock, Texas, our role was we were just an extension of who he already was, but we just had to be the storytellers to get it out there and to let people try that. And I think, I look back on my life, and Stubb taught me, good taste is colorblind, and I really am very reverent to that, because, he was like the grandfather I never had, and, this larger than life figure that was 6'5" with a cowboy hat, 6'9", and hands of a baseball player, or the size of a baseball glove, excuse me. He was just a larger than life figure. And, he was so unique, and with that denim cowboy hat and just his physical presence, I mean, there was really no one quite like him. And so, we always talk about the mechanics of the sauce, but it was his recipe. We've never changed that. We were the only barbecue sauce that stayed in glass. A lot of people were trying to take the cost out and a lot of things to cheapen the item. But, these were just, things that we look back, and I think Stubbs, because he was real and genuine and authentic, that's really what, the whole thing was about. And I think consumers, right, ultimately, because of the story, and like you're saying, the iconic nature and the culture and the lifestyle and the blues, I mean, he personified that. And I think that is really really been the tangibles that brought a lot of the cohesiveness to our brand.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about I know you said you were in Austin for 25 years. This
right.
brand started in Lubbock. So how did Stubbs become an icon in Austin?
Yeah, so he had moved here when the musicians moved here, the Joe Elys and the Jimmy Dale Gilmores and Butch Hancocks and those guys had moved down here to play music, and they were all friends. So Stubb moved to Austin to be with them and continue that friendship. And he would serve, while they were playing, he would actually go to Antone's and serve barbecue out of Antone's. It's just kind of in the back. And so it kind of built from there. And then we were, so the sauce company was kind of our focus. And then I guess it was after we had been doing the sauce for about 3 or 4 years, we knew that Stubb had wanted the opportunity to have another restaurant in Austin. And I think we did too. We wanted to have that mecca for him and for the sauce, if you will. And so on Red River, one day after many years of looking, I found a place, and it was in pretty bad shape, as you can imagine. And we invited Stubb to come down, and he drove down, and in his very reverent way, he looked down. It was real quiet, and kind of looked at the property, and we thought, oh man, this is terrible. He hates it. And we said, Stubb, what do you think? And he said, this is hell's half acre, but it's a perfect place for Stubbs. And so, we were just thrilled that, here we go. We got a place. We bought that property, and we put, blood, sweat, and tears and years into that. And we opened in 1996 for South by Southwest, and we had bands that, we were like, who are the Fugees? And we didn't know who this was, and it turns out to be the Fugees, and they won like a Grammy that year. So we were very new to all what a restaurant and music, but we knew we had something special. We had a great location, downtown Austin, outside. We were slow smoking barbecue. I mean, doing the right things, very honest, with skin on, bone in chickens, and the briskets that would take 14 hours to smoke.
Man,
and
I'm
hand rub.
hungry,
Yeah,
right?
we thank you. I mean, this was all his process and his technique. So, yeah, we got the food right and the music was right and cold beer. I mean, you put those together, I mean, it's hard to mess up, So, and thankfully we just celebrated our 20th anniversary at the Red River location. So, very special place, and we've been blessed to have just amazing acts come through there, and it's been such a blessing. You came down there one night. We went back and looked at the pit, and kind of showed you guys around that one time a few years ago. But it's a common denominator, and we're fortunate enough that people have enjoyed it and they keep coming back. So it's been a blast.
That's so cool, man. That just brings up so much nostalgia and the whole environment of Austin and everything that this city is Stubbs is a huge part of that. Man, so kind of stepping back, and I know now your partners are also involved in music events.
Yeah. So Charles, yeah, exactly. We were roommates. I'm guessing C3 is what
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, really proud of Charles and his team. They Charles was a roommate, and he was playing in a band, and I had asked Charles. I said, "Hey man, you're in a band. You could probably get some music at Stubbs, right? Just not knowing much about that whole process." And I think Charles at the time was obviously not where he is today. He was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I could get a couple of bands down there." So he just he kind of built his own empire, if you will, but he just did it by learning and working hard and making great connections. And bands would come down and we would maybe not have the best bands at first, and then we have our indoors, but eventually, the bands loved playing there. They loved the whole thing, the whole vibe. And Charles has done a great job. In fact, now they are C3, and they obviously have, with the Austin City Limits and all of Lollapalooza. So, they have done an amazing job, not just in Austin, but around the world with music and what they're doing. So, but I'm very proud to say that started with a friendship and a belief in Stubbs and that location, and so they're rocking and rolling, literally. Yeah.
Right. So they have ACL, which just had, I think it said its 15-year anniversary. Or
yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
It would say, I thought it was only 10, and it's 15. It's a 2-day weekend event.
Right.
And then with their events, so y'all aren't necessarily have ever been business partners, but just.
No, we are. Charles and I are,
okay.
Yes, we are business partners at the Red River location.
Okay,
correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then they also have C3.
Yeah, they have their own, exactly. They have their own company with C3, which I'm not a part of, but, there's other things that they were not part of the sauce company. So, we've all dabbled in different things throughout the years, but we all believe in Stubbs, obviously, and are proud of that. And, still going stronger than ever. We have record year after record year after record year. So it's fun to see that continue to grow. And, one thing I'd like to share with you, I think it's important, is the culture that we have as a business. It's really essential to, and I look back, we have people that work at Stubbs at the restaurant that have been there 15, 20 years, and they've started families. And, it's just to see them, as probably more importantly than they are there every day working so hard, and really proud of Ryan Garrett, our general manager, he started out as a line cook, and then he went up to manager, and now he's the general manager of the whole thing, shooting match. And you can imagine that's a huge undertaking. And, to watch him, develop and love to be there. And there's so many success stories like that from every bartender, wait staff. There's so many people that love to be there, and I think having great people give you great results, and it's they should be applauded and are, just for their years of being at Stubbs and the family. We call it a family, and that really is what I think separates us from just your other venues that are, and this is a competitive market for live music. People love to go see live music, and there's a lot of choices. So people still like to come to Stubbs, and hopefully they keep coming for many years to come. Yeah.
So tell me, I know we were talking about your Sunday brunch is a huge hit, and how did that get going? And
well, yeah. So yeah, the brunches are probably our best food day overall. We do 2 of those a day, or 2 of those each Sunday. They sell out every week after week. And we, I guess, spending some time in New York, we had been to a couple of those, and just, it's a great, I don't know, there's just something very special about the music and the food and the family, and we thought, man, that'd be wonderful to bring that here, so we did, and we tried it out, and what was really makes it unique and authentic is having real evangelical choirs, the ministries, perform each week. And it's like going to church, right in the middle of a barbecue joint. And so, their message and their spirituality and their connection with people is, I think, what keeps people coming back. And it changes. We'll have the Bells of Joy will play, and then we'll have different bands play from time to time. But it's wonderful, and they pass the hat around, and everyone has a really for the tips for the ministry, just like you're in a congregation, So yeah. It's a special day, and people line up and just keep coming back year after year. So, and it's a lot of great barbecue and eggs, and oh man, yeah. There's a lot of food. So go hungry for sure.
Yeah. So that's cool. I know that you recently had a child.
Yeah.
And so, talking a little bit about a family work balance and kind of like how, that approach has been for you through the whole journey with your own family.
Yeah, no, family is so important, and gives you the foundation, and blessed to have that, and our little boy, who's almost 2 now, is just the light of my day and life. He's I get to see life through his eyes in ways that I never thought I would. And when I was on the road a lot, I didn't have that opportunity to be around as much, with just everything. And so now that I'm, not traveling as much, it's made it more special to be a part of his life and our other kids. We have, 3 kids, and I mean, it's a busy house, but the days they're not there or not around, you're like, it feels empty, Mm-hmm. So, we're, especially during the holidays, we're all excited, trees up, and, it's kind of a magical time. But, the family is they're supportive of me and I am them. And so I think that, having that with each other has made it, really a great time of life, to be, having, if you're not happy at your house, I think, or if you're not happy at home with your wife and your kids, I don't think you'll be successful at these other things we're talking about, mm-hmm. For me anyway. And so, because you have to have your priorities and your focus, and, that goes back to my parents and, and just everything working. We have bad days, sure, everybody does, but we all have the same goal. And I think that's what's really, kind of helped us, kind of manage. You have kids, they're a handful, but mm-hmm. man, we have a blast. We are having fun for sure.
So I know you got a new project underway. Just recently opened the doors on your new restaurant, and I hear all the same classic with this bar that you moved in. So I'm curious to hear about your new venture here in Austin.
Yeah, no, thanks. So we, John and I, again, a partner from Stubbs, we living up in New York. We used to go to this bar called the Cedar Tavern, and I would go there with my brother. And we just had a blast there. It's this beautiful 166-year-old bar, hand-carved mahogany. And it was just, it was something I'd never seen, being from Lubbock, just to see this beautiful, ornate piece of furniture. And of course, it happened to be a bar, so good food, and we'd hang out and have a good time. But, I just knew there was something really special about that. And so it was just kind of a good place for us to hang. It was like our local hang, right? And then life goes on. We, did Stubbs, moved to Austin. We're down here, and my brother passed away about 12 years ago, this last Thanksgiving. But during that time, I got a call from his best friend, and he said, hey, you heard the Cedar Tavern's for sale. And I was like, that's too bad. I'm sorry. We had a great time, but it was like kind of a nostalgia thing. He goes, no, you got to call this guy or email him. And I think emails just came out. So I was like, a long time ago. So I emailed this guy and I said, how much for the bar? And that was it. And then a few days later, I got an email back from him. And at the bottom, he was telling me all about the bar. And then at the very bottom, he said, is your brother Bobby Patterson? And I was like, wow, this is something special, because out of 9 million people in New York City, how would he know my brother? And so turns out, the broker that was selling this bar knew my brother. They were very good friends, and he was like, and he knew our background was Stubbs, and he said, because we took an older bar in an older building and redid it. I think you guys would be the perfect fit for this bar, because the family wanted it to not just go away or be cut up in picture frames as other people wanted to do, or privatized. Or Donald Trump even wanted to put it in one of his, private estates or something. But we ended up getting this bar. We moved it down to Austin. It's been in storage for 10 years. And we worked on this project for 3 years, just trying to get the building ready. And so, yes, we opened it up. It's called Eberly. And we have our beautiful bar prominently displayed in there. And I should note that the name Eberly is important to Austin, because we named it after the Angelina Eberly, who was the lady who shot the cannon in the brigade of Houston to come down to get all the documents from the war, because they were going to move the thought was President Houston at the time wanted to take the documents and take them down to Houston to make Houston the capital, Washington on the Brazos. And so Angelina Eberly was like, hell no, these documents and the capital should stay in Austin. And she fired this cannon and as a protest and in the middle of the night, and kind of woke everybody up, and they were like, yeah, you're right, they do need to stay here. So we pay tribute to her because she was the savior of Austin to some degree, and they called her, for the Archive Wars. And there's a statue, have y'all seen that on Congress, of her firing that cannon? And so that's kind of why we have the cannon as kind of our logo, and just that moment of reflection to say, hey, this is Austin. And so that was some of the bar and the story of, and it's a big place. So we're really excited. 10,000 square feet, it's big for a restaurant, but we're having a blast, and it's a beautiful place. I mean, it's exceeded our expectations. It really is
I could
special.
only imagine. I mean, it's such a great location in South Lamar, next to Uchi, right off of Barton Springs. So, and so kind of what is what y'all's food line, and what do y'all have there?
Yeah, so it's elevated. I mean, there's smoked oysters. There's probably the best hamburger you'll ever have. I mean, you can say that, but we have this 33-day aged hamburger that's just the beef. We make our own bread, so we make our own buns there. We make our own butter. We make our own ketchup. I mean, we make our own desserts, our own pastries. The ribeye, the steak frit. We do pizzas there. I think I said smoked oysters already. The redfish. So it's in big bottles of wine. I mean, it's a pretty but it's comfortable. I mean, it's sophisticated, but it's still a comfortable place.
It's Austin.
It's Austin, and so I mean, I've seen a lot of people coming in for special occasions, and they're all dressed up, and then I've seen guys or girls that'll go to the back of the bar and just kind of hang out. But I think that's what makes it fun, and I love the age and the ethnicities and the backgrounds. I mean, it's just a very diverse crowd because Austin's that way now. I mean, Austin's not the town, it's the city, and so we want to cater to that. But it is, I would say, upscale. There's valet parking, and it's a very pretty place. So I don't know. I mean, I'm very proud of it, and service and the quality of the food. It's a high standard for sure. There's a lot of choices in Austin, so you have to kind of outdo yourself every night in this business for sure. So,
I mean, you have a history of success with your businesses, and you've led on to some of your success, habits of working hard and your due diligence, and what has been some or one of your biggest struggles that you've seen over the last 25 years of entrepreneurship that like you didn't know you were going to get through?
Right.
Do you have any of those that you'd like to share?
Sure. I think the most recent one was just developing in Austin was a challenge, and it goes back to any entrepreneur, any person in business is going to hear no. I keep going back to that because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so every day you have to have the discipline to just tackle every issue that comes your way, and they will. I mean, and you're going to have mistakes. You're going to have a lot of that. The one issue that in particular with Eberly is that we could not get a joint access use for our own water meter. Sounds easy enough, right? To have a water meter that you want to use yourself, that's on your property. But because of the way the policy, and this is not a political statement, it's just there were things that would not allow us to do that, to get our own water on our own property. So you could say, well, project's over, you're done, you can't do this. And that's not an option. We can't just stop. So we literally had to shut down Lamar with 50,000 cars going by a day and dig underneath Lamar, or actually through Lamar, and connect to a water meter across the street, and then bring it back to our property. And, that was lots of money and lots of time.
You paid for it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, the city wasn't going to do that. So we had to shut down Lamar. We're real popular doing that. And getting a water. I mean, and again, these are just little kind of boring details, but, you have to be, a big boy, big girl, whatever, to get through these little things. And surprises are going to happen. And so we had to manage all that. And, sure, we got our water after a lot more delays than we wanted, a lot more expenses. And it was very frustrating. And there was a lot of times you're like, why the hell are we doing this, So, and there's a lot of people that are going to say you can't do this. And, the property's not right, the parking's not right. There's just a lot of things I could bore you with. But I guess you just have to anticipate that and know that those are coming. And, we do everything the right way. And in fact, we probably did 100% right on everything. But it's always those little, 1%, 2% that are just going to, could really disrupt the whole thing. But we manage through it, and you find a way to compromise or do what's needed to be done to be successful. And we did that, and I'm really proud of the tremendous effort by so many people. And I think that's another thing you have to do is just be able to, success is not an event in your life. It's a journey. And it takes, you have to be disciplined and just focus and just know that it's a journey, and have fun doing it, because it's that's what's going to make it fun in the end too.
Mm-hmm. So, have you had mentors along the way, or are you a reader or books, or how do you kind of navigate the entrepreneurship landscape? Is it?
Yeah, there was a gentleman that Mr. Charles Jarvie, and I have to say Mr. Charles Jarvie because he's quite a character, but I look back and he helped me professionally in terms, because he was a president and CEO of Dr. Pepper, and had a lot of experience directly related to the business side of my of the grocery business. So he was certainly a guy that was experienced, and I think experience is always important to find that kind of, especially if you do whatever you do in that sector, if you will, to find someone experienced that's done it before and can help you avoid the mistakes and what have you. And then the other mentor, I just would be my dad. My dad had always instilled in me, just be competitive, never give up. Just it's okay not to know what you don't know, and just ask the right questions, be a good listener. So definitely my father was and still is a person that believed in me, and maybe when others didn't. And I think that those two guys, of course my mother as well, so and my wife Caroline, she's been a big supporter. So I think those are the and as an entrepreneurship, you kind of sometimes have to do things on your own. And so you've heard this all your life, but the sense of failure is just, oh man, for it not to work would just be devastating to me, So I think that sense is what drives me, personally, all those things, I guess, kind of wrapped up in one. So.
Mm-hmm. So any life lessons, opportunity to teach 3 things that someone could walk away with today that would, that you've learned that could pass on some wisdom?
Well, I guess there's don't be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, that's half of it. Learn from them, right? But you're not always going to do things right, and that's okay. Be strong, and when I mean strong, just be confident. Of course, work hard, but be disciplined. And I was thinking about kind of before we talked, like, what is the magic formula? And I don't know if there's a lot of books and a lot of things and that you can pick up on, and there's always some good and some bad, and be open-minded to that, because life changes and business changes, and the environment changes all the time, and you've got to change is inevitable. So you always have to be able to adapt to that and adapt quickly, I think. But from a tactical standpoint, I believe that if you can do something 3 things a day, it doesn't sound like a lot, 3 things a day to make a difference in your personal life or your business. And you don't have to do it all in one day. People think that you have to build an empire all in one day. There's going to be some days that you will work harder than others. But if you can have the discipline to do 3 things a day, imagine what 6 months, a year later, 2 years, 20 years later. And if you look back and you do those three things, it's much more, you're looking to look back and you go, oh my God, I did all that, or we did all that, or whatever it is, your goal. And then you have to have a goal. If you don't have a goal, then all the all the things you're doing, you'll just be wasting your time. You have to have a definitive goal that says, I need to reach this summit, this point, this thing. And I think that has always helped me to manage my time, life, or what have you, to reach these goals. I've always had, goals that help me, try to be successful, continue to be successful. I think that's a subjective word, right? You always want to be more and more and more. But so those things would be something I would share with others, just to.
So diving into goals, how do you? Is there a particular way that you set goals? Do you get out a piece of paper and write it down? Do you just? What's your process for that?
Yeah, I think it has to be structured. Sure. I've written business plans to every business that I've been involved in. And they're hard to do. They're time consuming, but they're important because, you have to be able to, articulate that not only to yourself, but to others at times. You'll have the opportunity to share your thinking with others. And if you have it written down through a business plan, that will help you get to that next level and that goal. And that will change. Your business, whatever your business plan is today will not look like that a year from now. So it's important to have that written down and, have your goals and what you're going to do. And, and again, it doesn't have to be 20 goals that you're going to do in, 20 days. That you will not get that done. I mean, maybe, but and also I would say dream big. Always, don't be afraid to think big and dream big and go for it. I mean that, and because in my own life, I'm surprised that, oh wow, we did this, so, if the bigger you dream, the maybe the greater it is, but it's all about capacity and resources, I understand, but, be focused, have it written down. And I try to do that, with all my ideas and goals.
So being at Stubbs and seeing the music come through, who have been, one of your top favorite shows, or some people that you've met maybe with all these musicians that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and it's fun to, I guess the shows that have stuck out. Number one was Willie Nelson. He was the guy that, if you could have Willie Nelson show up at your venue, I mean, you made it, right? Especially in Austin and Texas, and and he, for many years, he couldn't or wouldn't, or he's a busy guy, and so but he played there one year, and that was special, So he was fun to watch. The other one that really surprised me was Metallica. Played at Stubbs. We were the smallest venue they've ever played in. And
that was a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And so, it was funny because there were more people outside of Stubbs than there were inside. So it was kind of a promotion thing. And, whether or not you like Metallica or not, what they do is pretty cool. So that was fun. But we had James Brown play there. You can be a fan of Lady Gaga or not. She played there. But the Foo Fighters, that was one of my favorites of all time. I mean, they're just amazing. So to watch them do what they do was incredible. So, and that list can go on and on and on. But it's been a lot of fun to watch not just but some of the best music in a lifetime has been through there. I always tell people, if I never see another live music in my life, I saw a lot of live music. So, every show's been great, man.
That's awesome. Well, Eddy, we appreciate you coming in here and visiting with us and telling. I think there's a lot of, through your story and sharing, there's a lot of value for, entrepreneurs just looking at a track to succeed. And pleasure hearing your story and all that. I'm really hungry. I'm thinking about going to get some Stubbs barbecue.
Yeah.
So appreciate you, sir.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate all you guys do too. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much for joining us on the Amplify Podcast. You can find more at theamplifypodcast.com. Our social links to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join us in conversation. Let us know what you're thinking and how we can best service you guys. We will see you again really soon.